And then he explains. As you yourselves know, he goes on to say, this Jesus delivered up according to the what? The definite plan and foreknowledge of God. You and I do not know the future. Politicians, sports betting, investments, we try and predict the future. We try and anticipate what is coming so that we can be prepared for it. The truth is, we do not have foreknowledge. We do not know what the future holds, but God does. And so, friend, if you're here today and you're living in anxiety and distress or anxiousness about your future, let me tell you a secret. You don't need to know the future. You need to know the one who knows the future. God knows the future. He has foreknowledge. He sees everything in completion and totality. And he says regarding Jesus that there was a definite plan according to the foreknowledge of God, and you crucified and killed him by the hands of lawless men. Here's what he's saying. Jesus, front and center. Everyone else off to the side. Jesus, front and center. Jesus, front and center. And God had a plan, a definite plan. His plan was that though we had sinned against him, and though we had rebelled against him, and though we had fled from him, and we'd lived independently of him, and we had ignored him, that he would pursue us. That in love, he would send his son on a rescue mission for us. This is the greatest love story that's ever been told. Every love story pales in comparison. This is God loving his enemies, like you and me. And so God the Father and God the Son, God is one God, three persons, Father, Son, and Spirit. The Father sent the Son, and the Son came not in glory, but in humility. Not into riches, but into poverty. Not into a big town, but into the little town of Nazareth. That's where he grew up, with Mary and Joseph as his mother and father. The oldest child, miraculously conceived with a lot of brothers and sisters. Who would have thought that God would come this way? But this was his definite plan. And the plan was that Jesus would live the life that we've not lived, the life that is without any sin, the life that is altogether pure, altogether holy, altogether good. And we had a plan. And our plan was to murder him. Our plan was to murder him. People became jealous of Jesus. Others became critical of Jesus. There were repeated attempts to end the life of Jesus because he showed he was God through his miraculous deeds, and he said he was God through his incontrovertible words. Hear me in this. When he's talking about the crucifixion of Jesus, you need to know why they killed Jesus. They didn't kill Jesus because of what he did, but because of what he said. He fed the hungry. They didn't kill him for that. He befriended the outcast. They didn't kill him for that. He healed the sick, and they didn't kill him for that. They killed him because he said he was God. They killed him because he repeatedly said, openly said, unapologetically said, clearly said he was God. This was a threat to the political authorities because it meant that Jesus was above their ruler. This was a threat to the religious leaders because Jesus was claiming to be God, and if untrue, he's a blasphemer who deserves death. And so they conspired a plan to kill Jesus. It says that they were lawless men. Some of you are lawless. What that means is you're a law unto yourself. You don't submit to the Bible. You don't submit to the Lord. You don't submit to authority. You don't submit to anyone or anything. You're your own God. You're your own law. You're your own authority. You live under your own rule. And lawless men came together and they made a plan. Let's oppose him. Let's falsely accuse him. Let's arrest him. Let's have one of his friends betray him. Let's beat him. Let's flog him. Let's rip the flesh off his body. And then let's crucify him openly and publicly and shamefully. They had a definite plan to kill Jesus. And it looked like the plan was succeeding in great triumphant victory. Jesus was arrested. Jesus was falsely accused. Jesus was wrongly tried. Jesus was beaten. Jesus was flogged beyond recognition. Jesus was crucified. And Jesus is sweating, and Jesus is bleeding, and Jesus is losing, and Jesus is dying. Well, on the cross, Jesus says, I thirst. And they took a sponge and they sopped it in wine vinegar and they shoved it toward his mouth. A sponge like that would have been standard issue for a soldier. And they would use it in the field to clean themselves after going to the bathroom. They would take the sponge and they would put it on a stick and they would clean themselves after going to the bathroom out in the field of combat or while traveling. And then they would use the wine vinegar as an antiseptic to cleanse the sponge so that they didn't cause infection to themselves. And it was possibly even that sponge that they shoved in his mouth. They had a definite plan. And here's what the Lord Jesus then had to say. My God, why have you forsaken me? And then he said in a loud voice, it is finished. And then Jesus, just before he breathed his last, said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And Jesus died. We murdered God. We killed him. The sky went dark. A spear was thrust through his side, and water and blood flowed from Jesus' side as he died of a physical, emotional, and spiritual broken heart. Lawless men crucified Jesus. And God had a what? A definite plan. In his foreknowledge, he knew how sinful and rebellious and wicked and treacherous we are. There can be no greater condemnation of the human condition than the execution of God. Anybody who says, we're good people, we killed God. We're not good people. We're murderers. But God had what kind of plan? A definite plan. God's plan was that Jesus would substitute himself, that he would die in our place, that he would suffer for our sin, that he would pay our debt, that our murder of God would be God's way of loving us. Here's how I know the Bible's true. Nobody would have made this up. Nobody could have conceived of this. This is not a definite plan that any of us could have possibly even conceived of. And friends, when Jesus died, he died for you, and he died for you, and he died for you, and he died for me, and he died in love, and he died to seek, and he died to save, and he died to forgive, and it was all part of the definite plan. And God had a definite plan to use the greatest evil for the greatest good. And God, my friends, had a definite plan to take our damnation and give us his salvation. And God had a definite plan to take our sin and give us his righteousness. And God had a definite plan to take our death and give us his life. And God had a definite plan to take our wrath and give us his grace. And God had a definite plan to make his enemies into his family. Jesus took your place. And he puts you in his place. He knew exactly what was going to happen. And he had a definite plan.